Chase Buchanan, Private Wealth Management. Trusted advice made simple.
They say life is a game, gotta have your goals. I gotta take a shot, now pass me the ball. Always wanna stop me when I'm running the ball. Gotta dust it off, now watch me go. You gotta see it.
Mr. Paul Ince, thank you very much for joining me. It's an absolute pleasure.
Welcome.
So I'm going to cover a myriad of things over this personal talk, although I do feel there's something coming between us. So it's not exactly intimate with Paul Ince, is it? But there's a good tone between us. But you've had an amazing career, obviously. West Ham, Manchester United, Inter Milan, Liverpool, Middlesbrough Wolves, 53 England caps, and a bit of football management. So I would like to start at the beginning. First question, how did you get into football in the first place?
Well, I think like most kids, you know, when you're at school, you know, football's a main game. In England, it's not like, you know, other countries where it's rugby or cricket. Football's always been that game, and obviously playing in the school playground, you know, that's how it starts. And when I got to about 12, 13, I joined a Saturday club called Elmshire Colts, and they played on a Saturday and Sunday. So that's how I got into it. You know, I never knew how good I was. I mean, to be fair, when I first started playing football as a kid, I was playing centre forward.
Oh, really?
Yes, I was never a midfield player. I was a centre forward.
That's actually quite late now, isn't it? 12, 13? Because you look, you know, there's been loads of writing about the academies, race to the bottom, and kids coming in as young as 5. Do you think that's too early?
Yeah, very much. Because I think what you've got to do as a kid, you've got to enjoy it. You've got to enjoy football. And I think when you're kind of taking these kids away at 7, 8, all of a sudden the pressure's on straight away. Not so much from the kids themselves, but more so from the parents. And I've seen a lot of stuff like that with my son Thomas, obviously being at academies from a young age. But as far as I was concerned, I mean, I joined West Ham at 14. You know, I was at West Ham and Fulham at the same time, so I was training for West Ham on the Thursday and Fulham on the Tuesday. But Fulham used to train outside. West Ham had a lot of indoor AstroTurf, so when it got to winter time, you know what I mean, I stopped going to Fulham. I went to
oh, that's football loyalty for you, isn't it? Fickle, warm weather training.
So after that, then obviously I signed YTS schemes, and then I went on from there.
So, and do you remember signing? Do you remember getting that first placement and remembering? Was it as important as you know? Was that the tick in the box that you knew you'd sussed it?
Not really, because I mean at the time it was one of them, because I was a bit of a rogue when I was a kid.
I don't believe that for a minute,
Can't believe that
Paul.
for 1 minute, can you? You know, that's a nice smile on that, you know what I mean? But no, I was. So when you got to 16, there was 2 options. You either signed a YTS, which was 1 year, or you signed an apprenticeship, which was 2 years. So at the time, the YTS was like just 1 year. And I got into a bit of trouble when I was at that time. And then John Lowell said, listen, Paul, until you show that you can behave yourself, we're going to just give you a 1 year contract. Which was disappointing, because obviously the 2 year gives you that bit of security. And most of the kids who got 2 years weren't really as good as me. They were just good boys, you know what I mean? So it was a bit of a challenge for me. You know
Do you think that drove you though? Because like you say, it's interesting, isn't it? But if you get security, with security sometimes comes complacency. So I wonder actually if only having that year, do you think it pushed you a little bit harder?
I think what pushed me, because I got punished, because the story was, we went to a college party back at my old school, and I got involved in a fight, and then, you know, something happened, and then I got done for it. So I think what pushed me was, John Lowell said that every day I've got to get to work. So I used to catch the 86 bus to Chadwell Heath, where the training ground was. I had to be there for 8:30 every morning, and I had to paint the West Ham gates claret and blue.
Oh, really?
Yep. And every morning I was getting out, painting, the cars were coming in, people were laughing at me. And I did that for about 6 weeks.
Amazing.
That's kind of my punishment for being a bad boy. So that kind of said to me, it was simple, you know, you need to liven up. It was embarrassing. You know, I was a 17-year-old kid from Dagenham, you know what I mean? All of a sudden they're standing there, like painting the gates claret and blue. So that was like a little push for me, you know.
I like that though. So I think, you know, and it's a personal opinion, but I think actually we've got a little bit too soft, because I don't think people would be allowed to do that now.
No.
You know, it's always that, isn't, you know, granted you don't want bullying and harassment, and absolutely you don't. But I think they're really good levelers, aren't they? You know, this is how you're going to.
The thing is, you talk about, you know, cleaning boots. You know, that was part of growing up. Was part of what you had to do to process it to get through to be a pro. You know, some people used to clean players' cars. You know, and you know you couldn't do it now. You know, you're not allowed to do those things. But it is a kind of a learning curve for you to when you get to the top. And And it's like, well, I don't want to keep cleaning boots all the time and washing cars. You know what I mean? I want someone to wash my car and clean my boots. So little elements like that kind of push you on to where you want to get to.
It's aspirational, isn't it, almost? And when you joined West Ham, how much of the junior team how much of you did you see of the senior team, and did you see of that real Premier League?
Well, I mean, at the time it wasn't the Premier League; it was just like the Championship. You know what I mean?
Of course, yeah.
You know,
yeah.
so but it was funny because I kind of got in there when I was 18, 19, and I remember Jeff Pike was the mainstay in the team, alongside Billy Bonds and Trevor Brooking. So
Sir Trevor,
silly me. So I'm kind of looking at an 18, 19-year-old kid, and I'm like, because when you get into the first team, you swap changing rooms. So you've got all your mates in the youth team that you grew up with, like Steve Potts and Kevin Keane and people like that, and all of a sudden you get a transfer into the main dressing room, which is the first team. So I'm nervous as anything, can I? You know what I mean? Because also I've gone from cleaning someone's boots
to being in the main room, and you kind of feel a bit alone, a bit isolated, because you know you feel out of place, you know. And I remember, like, you know, Jeff Pike was the main man, so I thought, well, I'm taking his place. Which didn't go down too well at the time, you know, as a young kid. So it's a little bit nerve-wracking, but then all of a sudden the likes of, you know, Alan Devonshire, you know, put their arm around me, so listen, we'll look after you, which is a nice thing to do. And then as the months went on, I just started playing well and I felt comfortable. It's strange, isn't it? Because as you say, there's moments, I think, where, and anybody who's in leadership, and I think football, although it's a sport, I think it's probably the one game that plays across into that kind of corporate world better, because it is about making people feel part of the team, isn't it? Like, there is no more a place where you need to feel involved to perform well. And I think, you know, I think that brings us on to the Euros, doesn't it? You know, when you were back in the team of 19, how different was it from playing Premier League football to suddenly putting the best of England together? And
yeah, I think Premier League's quite easy, you know what I mean? Because obviously, you know everybody there, you know, there's kind of especially at West Ham, there was like a family atmosphere. And I think that's what you need to do at Premier League clubs if you're going to be successful, kind of, you know, incorporate that kind of family feeling, that environment. And then that's something that I had at West Ham as a kid, which is important. I think when you go to England, you know, it's completely different because you're not mates with all of them. You don't know what they're like. I mean, I roomed with Ian Wright when I was at England, and he was the worst roomie ever. You know
I'm going to have to ask why.
It just was a nightmare. And the thing is, he used to have the heating on, right? It was like Tenko in it. It was absolutely ridiculous. It was so hot, and he used to have the covers right over his head, and he used to go to bed about 9:30. And I used to go to bed about 12:30. So I've got the TV on. He keeps moaning, you know, TV's on. So it was hot in here, right? You know what I mean? You turn the heating off, and I'd lower the TV down. This happened every day. And then come 7 in the morning, 8 in the morning, he's wide awake. What's he do? Put the heating on, turns the TV on. So I'm like, right, could you turn the TV off? I'm trying to get some kit beer. You know what I mean? So this was going back and forth for months, you know what I mean? And we had some good laughs together, to be fair. It was a great roomie. But that just shows you, normally as a roomie, you normally have someone who you've played with. You know what I mean? But, you know, that's what Eltel did in Euro 96. He got everyone, you know, to be a part of family feeling. Everyone obviously mixed with different players and get to know what their likes were, what their dislikes were. You know, just chat in general. So it was great.
Oh, I love that. So talk me through. So you play for the Premier League, obviously, join West Ham.
Yeah.
When you do the away games, was it always travelling up in the same day or travelling back, or what's that kind of life like? Talk me through a working week as a footballer.
Well, listen, I think normally if you just go back on the Saturday, so you play on the Saturday, then we'll have Sunday off, normally. I mean, now it's changed. A lot of, you know, managers now decide to bring players in on a Sunday, because normally players like to go out on the Saturday after the game. They get dragged in on a Sunday, but not for us. We used to like play Saturday, go hard Saturday night, chill out Sunday, in on Monday, which we wouldn't do a lot on Monday. Depends whether the midweek game, you know, depends if it was a Champions League game or, you know, Cup Winners' Cup game, Europa League game, as we so to speak. It'd be a different kind of format, but normally during the week we'll have in Monday, chill, massage. Tuesday will be the tough day. Players don't run no more. Everything's got to be done with the football nowadays. This is what the scientists say. But in our time, because they knew we was probably on the lash, you know what I mean, for 48 hours after the game, you know what I mean, on the Tuesday we were running.
You weren't, were you? You weren't.
It was our culture, wasn't it? You know what I mean? So we used to run up hills and do running. So we knew Tuesday's always going to be the toughest day. And then we'll have Wednesday off to recover. Thursday's like when you start to prepare for the game on Saturdays. Manager does his 11v11. You start to get focused on what, you know, the game ahead of you. So we do 11v11 for about half hour, 45 minutes. Some will go and do some shooting practice. Some will just go straight and get massages. And Friday's pretty simple. You know, you come in, do a five-a-side, names the teams, maybe Friday or maybe Saturday morning, and then you go back home all day to think about the game Saturday. And then obviously we get the coach up Saturday morning. Now, some people drive. I mean, nowadays people get the coach all together. You see a lot of situations where managers say, right, we all drive to the certain hotel, we all jump in the coach and we all arrive at the ground at the same time in the coach. Our time, we just drove our cars there. So that was pretty easy then. You know, win the game, nick 3 points, I score a couple of goals.
Goes without saying.
Back out the lash
Goes
again.
without saying. Now, so it interested me, the times I've been to football grounds, it interests me how different the changing rooms are home and away. So psychologically, obviously, you want to make the visiting team feel a little bit... Can you remember which was the worst club to go to that really
Wimbledon.
didn't treat... Oh, was it? Wimbledon?
Yeah, Wimbledon. Wimbledon was probably the worst, Plough Lane. When you go from Manchester United's changing room, where it's vast, and even the away changing room's not as big as ours at home, but it's still quite big. And then you go to Wimbledon, where you feel like you're incarcerated. You know, you feel like you've been put in prison for 20 years because it's just that tight. You know what I mean? It's all dirty. The showers are dirty. They haven't cleaned the toilets. You know what I mean? This is typical Wimbledon, Vinnie Jones, John Fashanu, Dennis Wise stuff. You know what I mean? Just to try and make, especially when you're the bigger team coming to Wimbledon. You know, it tries to affect you. You know, but it didn't, because obviously we were mentally ready for it. You know, but that's probably the worst one.
Oh, I love that. I think we're going to have to dig a little bit more into that, actually, but we'll save that for a bit further down the line.
Cool.
But Paul, thank you. It's been absolutely fantastic doing this section with you. We shall take a break and come back afterwards, where I'm going to need to hear more about those changing rooms.
Oh, wow.
They say life is a game, gotta have your goals. I gotta take a shot, now pass me the ball. Always wanna stop me when I'm running the ball.
Chase Buchanan, Private Wealth Management. Trusted advice made simple. Chase Buchanan, Private Wealth Management. Trusted advice made simple.
They say life is a game, gotta have your goals. I gotta take a shot, now pass me the ball.
Paul, welcome back.
Good to be back.
So, touched earlier on changing rooms, and I kind of want to play a little bit into that about the psychology of it all, because I think football is a game where actually some of it's won before you go, before you go to it. So, talk me through, obviously, from starting with West Ham, but ending. Let's move to Manchester United, where obviously, you know, one of the biggest fan bases, one of the biggest stadiums. What was it like walking out into that arena and all those fans?
No, it was amazing. Do you know what thing that was amazing about it? You know, even going there at 21, just to walk in there in that change room and see the likes of Brian Robson, you know, who was my idol growing up. You know, he was someone that I wanted to emulate as a player. He was Captain Marvel, you know what I mean? So that for me, just to walk in there and see Brian Robson sitting there, you know, to see Mark Hughes sitting there, you know, all these big names, Steve Bruce, you know, it was just amazing. It kind of took me back to when I was actually first walked into the West Ham changing room. You know, I was so nervous because I was still only young, 21, but I was just bubbling inside. You know, just bubbling. And I remember the first game we played was Millwall at home.
Wow.
And you don't really know what it's like. You kind of see it on TV and you see all the fans, you know. But once you kind of walking out into the tunnel, and I can feel myself getting all.
I can feel it now.
This is it. You know what I mean? Because United was struggling at the time. You know, I would say we hadn't won the title for 20 odd years, which is kind of hard to believe when you think about all the great players who've been at Manchester United. So to think like, I'm walking out and thinking to myself, wow, I've come from here to this in such a short space of time. And just when you walk out, it's just like it's just amazing. It's hard to explain, but when you just see how high it goes up, you see all those fans. I've never experienced anything like that. You know, as a young footballer. You know, listen, West Ham was always chocker. Don't get me wrong. You know, and it was the fans were close to the pitch, so there was always an atmosphere there.
They're not now, are they?
They're not now. They're nice one out there.
So our times have changed.
Yeah, but you had to chicken run, and you know, that was the West Ham chicken run, which was famous. So it was a great atmosphere at Upton Park always. But this was completely different because they weren't too close to the pitch, but there was just loads of them, loads. It was jam-packed. It was like sardines, and you know the atmosphere was colossal. And then you think the game goes on, and you think, right, I need to play well here today. I need to play well. Because they're all looking at you. New signing, you know, what's he going to be like? And we won 5-0.
Oh, amazing.
We won 5-0. First game of the season, won 5-0. And I thought, come off the pitch, and I thought, wow, this is me. You know, this is great. I love it here. You know, we're the best team. We beat the smashing teams 5-0. Love all this. You know what I mean? And then the next week, we played at Manchester City at Main Road. We got beat 5-1.
Oh.
Couldn't get out of my hotel.
Oh, really?
Couldn't get out of my hotel because I was staying in a hotel in Deansgate. So the first game was brilliant. I love all this. Second game, we got beat 5-1, and there was fans outside the hotel and saying, you're this, you're that, you're that. Me, Danny Wallace and Gary Pallister. So there was a kind of difference, you know. But, you know, as far as playing in front of those big fans, Man United fans, the expectation's so high, and you have to perform. You know, you can't get away with not performing. And that's why you always hear these people say, well, he's not a Man United player. You know, and you think, well, what's a Man United player? You know, the Man United player is prepared to perform week in and week out. You know, the expectation that you're under, the pressure that you're under every game. Because they expect, Man United fans expect you to win every game. You know, and it's not always the case, but that's the expectation they expect you because we are Man United. So to deal with that pressure, you know, you've got to be not just a talented player, but mentally you've got to be able to deal with that. And we've seen players who come to Manchester United for big lots of money, even Veron, you know, he was a world-class player, came to Man United and struggled just because he couldn't deal with the expectation of being a Man United player.
And do you think, when you stand in the tunnel and you're waiting to go out, that 12th man, as it were, does that really affect your mood, your physicality, depending whether they're enthusiastic and they think you're going to win or whether they're down on you? Does that affect the play?
Yeah, sometimes you have to, you know, sometimes people say, is it the players that get the fans going or is it the fans that get the players going? And it depends who you're playing against. If you're playing against an Arsenal or Liverpool, you haven't got to ignite anything. It's just there. You know, but sometimes if you're playing a lesser team and the fans expect you to win, it can be very quiet. And you can imagine 60,000, 70,000 people being very quiet. So it's down to us, you know,
it's almost a louder silence, isn't it?
Yeah. It's down to us to get them on side. But you can hear every moan, you can hear every groan. But listen, when it's at its best, it's at its best. And you always need a 12th man. Don't matter who it is. I mean, we saw with the England-Scotland game, you know, the fans, you know, should have been the 12th man, but they weren't. They were booing, they were groaning, they wasn't happy. So it can have a you know, different effect on you if you're not meant to be able to deal with it. You know, because I kind of feel nowadays players are very fragile, the majority of them. You know, and things like that, it can affect the way they play. Back in my day, when you've got big characters like Cantona and, you know, Keane and that, you know, we can deal with that. We're mentally tough enough to deal with that.
It's strange, isn't it? Because I think the pandemic has demonstrated how the 12th man is important. Because we've seen some big teams that have not done so well with no crowd. You know, that for the first time ever, you could actually hear players talking to each other. You could hear that silence, as it were, that's not there. And I think you started to realise how important the likes of all of those fans at Manchester United almost acted as intimidating to the visiting team. And it almost does act as that 12th man, doesn't it? So do you think, as Manchester United coming from that massive stadium, it's always an upper hand to then go to the smaller clubs, or does it not make a difference?
No, not for us. I think this is Man United way. I find that the away fans and most teams, you know, are the hardcore fans. You know, they're the ones who you can hear singing, even if you go to Newcastle. And the fans are right up the top. You know what I mean? But they're the hardcore fans. In any team that I've beat, even when I managed in League Two and League One, we used to take even 200 fans. You could hear them. You know, that's a great lift for us as players. You know. So you've probably spot on about the fans, the 12th man. They're so important. And you look at, you know, Sheffield United this year. You know, without their fans this year, they've had a terrible season and gone back down. The year before that, with their fans, they were riding high in the top 10 of the table. So you know the importance of fans. You know how it can affect you, how it can not affect you. And it's just great to have them back, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. Although, as you say, having watched some of the Euros just recently, going that it feels that sometimes they're not there, does it? So, so we'll touch briefly now on the current England team. Yeah. What's your take on this?
Listen, I think we've always, when you look at our team and we go back to 2018 and we think, well, World Cup semi-finalists, with the team that we had, we should have probably really won it. And it was probably, I wouldn't say the word easy, but it was a nice passage to get through, journey to get through where we wanted to get to. And you kind of think, this year, in the Euros, we've got to take it on, we've got to progress. And at the moment, we're not progressing. I think the performances haven't been great. They've been bang average, if I'm being totally honest. But listen, apart from the first 15, 20 minutes against Croatia, you know, I thought, you know, we looked like a proper team, you know, playing at home, and you could hear the fans that got excited. After that, we kind of went into the lull, and it was just like, you know, it wasn't the greatest game. And then obviously the Scotland game was very disappointing.
I'm missing the waistcoat. I don't know about you. I'm thinking, you know, was it the waistcoat charm? Do you remember all the excitement about it was all Southgate was always in his waistcoat?
To be fair, I did say a question before to the fan time, and I said, listen, who do you think's the most stylish manager in the Euros? I don't think Southie's going to win that one.
No,
I honestly don't, because I'm not sure what the
he was
coat...
so dapper last time out, wasn't he?
So
dapper.
Doing, looked at it, you know what I mean? So, but no, listen. I just think ultimately to win a tournament, you know, you're not going to play well every game. You've just got to make sure when you arrive at the last 16 quarterfinals, you start to play some good stuff, because that's when you're going to play the better teams. And we've got 4 points. You know, we've got 4 points, and the objective is to get out of this group. You know, whether we play the Germans or the French or the Portuguese, you know, we got to make sure we're going into some type of form when we play one of those two teams.
Yeah. So what do you think when you look back? Can you tell me what it was like getting the call to say you're going to play for England?
Well, it was a funny one, because obviously, you know, I was kind of a bit upset that I didn't probably get the 1990 World Cup squad. I could get that because I was still relatively young. But, you know, at that year, we won the FA Cup with Manchester United in 89-90 against Crystal Palace. You know, I was playing well. So I thought, listen, I'm still young, so I could get that, understand that. But then not to get the 92 Euro squad was disappointing for me, because, you know, I was playing some of my best football at the time, even though I was only still relatively young. So I remember, obviously, getting a call up. We was playing Leeds at home at Old Trafford. Had a good game, won 2-0. And then Sir Alex called me upstairs to say that, you know, Graham Taylor's rang and said, can you come, you're part of the England squad. And you think I should be doing cartwheels, you know what I mean, or somersaults, and thinking, like, jump up for joy, shouting yippee, yippee, but I wasn't, because I kind of felt that I should have been in there prior to that. So I wasn't over enjoyed at the time. I said to Sir Alex, no, I'm not going. So,
really?
Yeah,
and because I know you so well now, I can hear you saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, what do you mean you're not going? No, I'm not going. Well, why not? Well, because, you know, I felt I've been playing well all season, not even been in the squad. It's only because we played against Leeds, where they had David Batty and Gary Speed, you know, and Gary McAllister in there. And David Batty was in the England squad at the time. He wants me to be in the squad, so I'm not going. So I went, it's your decision. So I walked back down into the players' lounge. And my wife Claire said, what's that about? I said, he wants me to go to England and Spain, but I'm not going. She went, you stupid. So she started having a go at me.
Good for Claire.
Good for Claire. Course, yeah. You know,
your country is grateful.
Yeah. And then obviously about 20 minutes later, Brian Kidd said, the gaffer wants to see you again. And he said, listen, I just spoke to Graham Taylor. I told him your grievances are why you don't want to go. You know, it's not that I didn't want to play for England, because I love playing for England. I used to love playing for my country. It's just that I just felt that I should have been there a lot quicker than what I was. So then Graham Taylor turned around and said to us, listen, tell him if he comes, he's starting. So I said, starting? I said, right, where's my passport? And that was it. Went to Spain, we got beat 1-0, and that was me ever since, you know. And I'm glad, I wasn't, it sounds like petulance or being spoiled, that, you know, it wasn't that. I just felt that aggrieved about it. And I thought, I'm not going to go all the way there and not play.
Not play, but once you knew you were starting.
Once I knew I was starting, then I was on the plane, you know what I mean? But it's just like, you look at Vardy retiring, you know, he's not prepared to go all the way if not playing. Jamie Carragher retired because he was going all the way and not playing in any games, you know? So, for me, even though I'm such a young age, I should have been saying, yep, definitely, I'm only 23, get me out on the plane, let me have experience that England setup. But, you know, I said, no, I need to play, and, you know,
brilliant.
I played.
Amazing, and played you did. Paul, thank you very much. We'll be back shortly.
They say life is a game, gotta have your goals.
Chase Buchanan, Private Wealth Management. Trusted advice made simple. Chase Buchanan, Private Wealth Management. Trusted advice made simple.
They say life is a game, gotta have your goals. I gotta take a shot, now pass me the ball.
Paul, welcome back. I'd like to touch a little bit on academy playing and going up through there and into football. So for me now, there's, you know, academy players are coming in ridiculously young, 5 years old, and I think there's some statistics now that if you play for an academy place now within the Premier League, you are 0.01% likely to end up playing for the Premier League. But these kids get taken on this journey. There's aspirations, there's promises, there's hopes. So culturally, obviously there's been a huge difference, but where do you think it's differed from where you joined and where they are now?
Well, it's massively different. You know, one financially, you know, we didn't have the money back in our days, but I think it was different in the fact that a lot of the kids in my time were kind of unprivileged kids. You know, they come from a certain background like myself. You know, and you know, we talk about leaders and characters, and we talk about, you know, how do I get my character? What made my character? And it was my upbringing. You know, and I wasn't, you know, fed with a silver spoon. You know, we all come up the hard way. If you spoke to Roy Keane, if you spoke to Brian Robson, you know, spoke to any boxer, Nigel Benham, they've all had a kind of tough upbringing. You know, when you're a kid at 5, 6, 7, you're not getting that. You know, the culture changed, generations have changed, and it's it's so early. You know, and the thing is, I always thought to myself, if I wasn't going to be a footballer, I'd have been banging trouble. You know what I mean? I would have been running with the wolves. You know what I mean? That type of stuff. You know, even gone to prison. You know what I mean? So I had to make it as a footballer. It was so important for me to be a footballer, which came with that kind of determination to do that. I think nowadays with these young kids, they get so much pressure on them, you know, to play academy football at 7, 8. The point of growing up and enjoying football, the point of playing football in the playground with your mates, playing on a Saturday and Sunday, you know, morning, afternoon with your mates, that's taken away from them. Because what the academies do now, they say, well, listen, you can't play for your club team now because you're playing for us, and you know, if you get injured, it affects you. So they're missing out this massive gap, you know, where should be playing with their mates every day in the playground, Saturday, Sunday, on the football pitch, just to try and become a footballer. And it's every parent's dream, you know, to say for their son to be a footballer. You know, I've been fortunate as a parent that my son's a footballer. But I've seen it where it takes over their lives, the parents. And it's more the parents than the sons, or the boys, or the girls, whoever it may be. And the pressure that can be put on these kids at such a young age, because their parents are saying, oh, well, my son's at Liverpool, my son's at Man United, my son's at Chelsea, or my daughter's at Aston Villa. All these type of things puts pressure on the kid to actually try and make it. So it can have a adverse effect on them, you know. And I think it's a shame the way it's changed, because once club does it, everyone wants to do it. No one wants to miss the boat. So if you see a 6, 7-year-old kid, you know, I mean, all these clubs are clamoring to get him, you know, and they think, I've made it.
They call it the race to the bottom, don't they?
Of course they do.
Who can pick the child up earlier. But it feels like, to me, I agree, it feels like kids are missing the fun of playing football. So as a parent who has a son, obviously Tom plays for Stoke at the moment, how has that been watching him go through the academy? And do you think you've been a better parent or a worse parent for having the insider knowledge?
Well, the thing is just, I think, just going back to what I was talking about, I just think, and also with these younger kids, all of a sudden they get to 10 and they start having to talk about agents, you know, and agents start getting involved. And you know, I know so many stories just where I've managed teams where agents have been going to kids' mothers and fathers and says, like, we can give you a washing machine, or we can give you a car, you know, we can get you a settee, you know, all this type of stuff, you know, just to sign for that certain club. So there's a lot of sharks out there. And I think for Thomas it was different, because obviously we spent a lot of time in Italy, you know, so he didn't come back till he was about 8. And I knew he was a talented footballer, you know, and I knew it even though as a young, and he was left-footed, which had helped. But when we came back to Liverpool, I said, you're going to Tranmere. You know, you're not going to none of the big clubs, you're going to go to Tranmere, because the mates that he made when we got back were all at Tranmere. I said, you're going to go to Tranmere, you're going to learn your trade, you know what I mean? He played his Saturday, Sunday football, he went to Tranmere when he was about 12, 13. So I think I did it the right way. And then obviously from Tranmere then he went to Liverpool at 14, 15, 16. That's the right way to do it. So he had that kind of 5, 6 years where he's enjoyed playing with his mates, enjoyed football. You know, there was no pressure on him from me. It's only when he got to maybe 17, 18 that the pressure starts, because that's when you can still enjoy football at a young age, even though you're playing academy football. But once you get past that 16 or 17, when you start thinking, I'm still at Liverpool, I can make it. This could be it. You know what I mean? And it starts becoming serious. And that's something Thomas has always said to me. He said, you know, once I got to 19, 20, Dad, it became like a job, and it became serious, and you start to think about it, you know, then it starts to affect you and that type of stuff. As a kid, you just want to play football and enjoy it. So but grabbing these kids at such a young age, they've got no time to enjoy their lives. You know, they're missing like a 5, 6, 7 year gap of what they should be having fun, and they're not having fun. And that's the disappointing thing about it for these boys and girls. But I feel like, as a parent, I've kind of tried to step away from it. You know, as I said, once you've got to a certain age, listen, if he needs advice, I'll give it to him. But you know, he's kind of a level-headed kid. He knows what he wants. And now, listen, there's times where we sit down and watch every game. If he ain't been playing well, and I say, right, get that CD or DVD, and tomorrow we're going to sit and watch it, and we go through it. You know, not and we're talking in a way because you can't be too aggressive with children. You know what I mean, or people in general, because they are a little bit different to how we were when we were growing up. So you've got to talk it in the right way, in the right mannerism, and you know, say what could you done there better. How do you feel about that? Let them think for themselves. You know, ask the questions and let them come up with the answers. So we used to do that more or less every game with Thomas, and he's learnt a lot.
And do you think now there's a different hunger? So obviously, as you say, back in your day when you were growing up and doing this, the money necessarily wasn't there. It was about the love of football. Do you think some of it now is more about the money? I mean, I know that you never wanted to be famous, and that actually it's something that you take very humbly when you're out and about. But I think there's a difference now. I think some people get into it for the fame. Would you agree? Or
yeah, I do. I think it's a combination. Listen, you know, I knew, you know, I think for me, I think just growing up, I think I just wanted to have a job in football where I could have a family and kids, you know what I mean? Because I never had a family, you know what I mean? So my dad left when I was 2 and my mum left when I was 10 to go and work. So, and then Claire's dad left when she was 14. So when we first met Claire when we were kids at school, and we thought, listen, I wanted to make a family that we could all stick together and have children and do it that way. So the only means, my way of doing it was through football. Never thought about the money, never thought how much I'd be earning. But as you get better, it comes hand in hand. You can't get away from it. But my first mindset wasn't, I'm earning X, Y, and Z. You know, I was earning £17.50 as a YTS. You know,
yeah, amazing.
I was only like.
What were you driving at the time? What was your car?
I was actually driving Claire's 1.3L Escort.
Love that.
I used
Yeah.
to go over to Mum's house and nick her Escort all the time. My mum used to go absolute bananas. He only wants you for your car. He only wants you for your car.
And 31 years later.
Yeah, she's driving a Bentley. You know what I mean? So yeah, I just wanted to have a nice, you know, family and that. So money never came into it. It's all about passion and winning titles and winning medals. And I think nowadays, because obviously with Sky, you know, the money's just gone so high, and there's no desire to want to be the best. You know, I think even these kids at the academies, you know, a lot of these players, you know, Chelsea, the amount of kids they've got there, you know, just sitting in the under-23s, just happy to be at Chelsea and earn the big money. You know, there's no desire for them to go out and actually try and, you know, they don't want to drop down to leagues. You know, all these top players in these academies, you know, and I've been a manager, and I've tried to get players on loan from certain big clubs. I said, oh no, we don't want to drop down to League One. We don't want to drop down to the Championship. And I'm thinking, well, you're not going to play at Chelsea. You're not going to, you know, and this is a problem. They're like supporting acts, a lot of these players, just for one or two exciting ones. You know what I mean? That's all they are. They're supporting acts, and that's the sad thing about it. They are supporting acts, but they're getting paid very well. You know, and when they're getting paid very well and driving around in big cars, they think they've made it, but they're still stuck in under 23s.
Yeah.
And eventually, what will happen? They let go, and then all of a sudden they find, where do I go now?
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to be earning the big money. I'm going to have to go down to League One, you know, or League Two. Well, we should have done that before with me, and then you might have got yourself back up there. You know, it's hard, you know, when someone's thrown that money at you, you know, because it's all about money now. It's very rarely about, you know, and that's why I kind of like, you know, Sancho and Jude Bellingham, you know, going, you know, having the courage to go and play in different countries, and you know, we see they've come back, and like Sancho could be going to United now for £80-90 million. If he hadn't decided to go out to Dortmund, it would never have happened. You know what I mean? So, you know, there is an avenue for players to go out there, but it's just whether they want to do that or whether they're just comfortable, pick up their wages as young players.
Yeah. So before we move to the break, I'm going to a very quick fire round here, because I think this is what people really need to know. The true Paul Ince. So it's a crucial set of questions here, right? Sweet or savoury?
Sweet.
Oh, wine or beer?
Wine.
Oh, dinner out or dinner in?
Dinner in.
Oh, most importantly, cinema or Netflix?
Netflix all day long.
Sun or snow?
Don't really like the sun, but I don't really like the snow, so I'm going to go sun, because I can play golf.
Of course.
Can't play golf in the snow.
Of course. And what's your hand? You're a good golfer, aren't you?
I've got to be careful, because obviously there's a competition going on.
Oh,
you know, so
is there? Oh, tell me more.
Well, that's a fan time. Whoever wins obviously the fan time, they get to play me at golf. So I don't want to say too much. You know
that's
what I mean?
true. Yeah. So average golfer.
Average golfer. Yeah.
That's absolutely
top it most
fine.
of the times, but
I love it. Car or motorbike?
Car.
Salt and vinegar or cheese and onion?
Oh, I can't believe you didn't find a prawn cocktail there.
Prawn cocktail.
Yeah,
Interesting
but
swerve
yeah,
ball.
but I've got to answer the question, so I'm going to go cheese and onion.
Cheese and onion, like that. Trainers or shoes?
Trainers.
Oh, dogs or cats?
Depends if it's called Rolo or not.
We have to explain that we have a friend with a dog called Rolo. Would you?
It's a pain in the butt. It's a pain in the butt. Probably dogs.
Oh, okay, good. Twiglets or mixed nuts?
Neither.
Don't like a salted peanut?
Don't like none of them. I like cashew nuts. That's it.
Oh, okay, cashew nut. That's all right then. So
Yeah.
we'll go. Are you a Marmite fan? Love it or hate it?
Yes.
Love it. I'm a Marmite fan. You can't beat it, can you? Work or play?
Work.
Oh, no, you see, so I thought you'd like savoury. I knew wine. I said dinner in. Netflix, I
Yeah.
got right. Sun, I got right. Car, I got right. I went salt and vinegar, I got that wrong. I went shoes over trainers.
Oh, did
Dogs,
you?
I got right. And work always over play, because I know your work ethic is exceptionally good. So it's been an absolute pleasure, Mr. Ince, and
you very
we'll
much,
see you after
Susannah.
the break.
They say life is a game, gotta have your goals. I gotta take a shot, now pass me the ball. Always wanna stop me, wanna...
Chase Buchanan, Private Wealth Management. Trusted advice made simple. Chase Buchanan, Private Wealth Management. Trusted advice made simple.
They say life is a game, gotta have your goals. I gotta take a shot, now pass me the ball.
Welcome back, Paul. So, touched briefly earlier on management. Obviously managed a couple of clubs. Talk me through the difference between being on the pitch and managing those on the pitch.
Oof. Big difference, massive. I mean, you don't really kind of really understand it until you actually do it. You know what I mean? And things as a player, you always kind of feel you're getting to the end of your career and you got to think, well, what am I going to do next? You know, and this was a big thing. Just coming off the side of that, is that a lot of the players, you know, they always think they're going to have a check every day, and they always think about they're going to get it every day, every week, every month, every year, but they don't have any kind of ambition to what they can do after. What's the next port of call? Because football's such a short career. So I always thought from when I was 31, 32, being the captain of a lot of teams that I played for, you know, that was the next step for me. And the first job I took was a Macclesfield job. And as a captain, when you're in the change room and you're standing up and you're talking and you're trying to encourage the lads, or you know, have a go at one or two or pick one or two out, you've got to be careful who you say what to who, because you've got to, as a captain, you've got to think about, you know, can he take criticism? Will it affect his performance? Have you got to put an arm around him, mollycoddle him? So you've got to know kind of manage the teams that the players that you're playing with as a captain. It's exactly the same as a manager. But I remember the Macclesfield game, first game I ever managed in my life. I'm not the nervous type. I like my little nerves if I'm playing big games. You've got to have nerves. But
It's passion, isn't it, more than nerves,
the
isn't
Friday
it?
night, I think we're playing. I can't remember, playing Wrexham on the Saturday. One of those teams, Wrexham or Boston. And the Friday night, I couldn't sleep. And I couldn't sleep. It wasn't that I was worried about the game or if we get beat, because at the time we were bottom of the table. We were like 12 points away from adrift from safety. So it was a kind of no-win situation. But the last thing I wanted to do as a first manager is go take a team down. So it was probably a tough job for me at the start. And I remember Friday in my bed, it must have been about 12:30, 1:15, tossing and turning, thinking, what am I going to say? You know, because you're talking about League Two, you're talking about if we go down, it kind of like what the players are going to do, income-wise, family-wise. They've all got family, they've got children, and also they're so dependent on me coming in. And when you're like a footballer like me who's done okay in his career, you know, they're so reliant on me saying what I'm going to say. So I'm thinking, what do I say? What do I say? Do I say it like a captain, or do I say it speak like a manager? I don't have to speak like a manager, so I'll just go and be myself. And I walked into the changing room, and you mentioned change rooms before. Macclesfield was like, I mean, the size of this. It was horrendous, all right? So I've got like 16, 17 players all there, and I'm standing in the middle, and I can feel my palms sweating, and I'm thinking, right, and they're all looking at me. It's not like when I went to Blackburn in the Premier League as a manager, where some players are looking at you, some are looking at the programme, ones are not playing, are, you know, disinterested. There's all these faces just staring at me, and I can feel myself like getting nervous. My mouth was getting dry, and I just switched right, get into captain mode. What do you say as a captain, you know? And I just did that, you know what I mean? And we went out and kind of won the game. And then gradually I got used to it. And I was buzzing. I've never been so happy in my life. You know, of all the things that I've achieved, you know, as a player, you know, to that first game at Macclesfield, and doing that first job of standing in front of the players and inspiring them to go and perform, and eventually inspire them to actually stay in the league, you know, which was a feat in itself. You know, I got more kind of pleasure out of that than actually winning FA Cups, winning titles, you know, playing for England. You know, they're personal things, you know. But to know that I've kind of saved a whole club financially.
Yeah.
Players now can still live the same way they have been. You know,
amazing. It's proper leadership stuff, isn't it?
That gives me more pleasure than anything that I've achieved.
So you had a break, didn't you? Then a couple of years, then went into Blackpool. So long break. You're going to go back to it? You ever going to manage again?
No, I'm quite enjoying sitting here talking to you, because I think this is the way forward for me. You know what I mean?
No, punditry. Let's do it.
Listen, I've always kind of felt that.
This is Susannah and Paul show. We've got it.
Yeah,
made. We're going to need you. You're the linchpin to this. I'm not going to lie.
I always listen. I love football. You know, football's always been my life and passion. I've kind of had, you know, a good 7-8 years at management, and I like managing the lower clubs. I like the Macclesfields, the Notts Counties, the MK Dons. You know, I like.
Oh, you heard it here first. You heard it here first. Back into management.
No. I like those type of players because they listen, they learn, they want to try their best for you. And I like those type of clubs to go into. So unless someone come up to me with an offer that says, "Listen, we got a project, we got a plan. You know, we got 3 years to get out of this league. You know, we want you to help us do it." If that's the case, then I'd look at it. If not, then I'm comfortable doing my stuff for the Premier League productions. You know what I mean? I've got Thomas who's playing for Stoke, so I get a chance to watch him. I've got my son Daniel. He plays a lot of golf. He's trying to make it, so I'll get to play golf with him. My daughter's now obviously in uni in London at King's College, so I get to see her. So, you know, I'm quite comfortable, you know, in my life. You know, I don't like being comfortable. I like to be pushed. You know what I mean? But you know, I'm happy where I'm at this moment of time. So, and we've seen with management, so you know,
it's fickle, isn't it?
It's fickle and
hardly given a chance now. It feels like you're in and you're out, and it's
correct. And you know, if you've got kids and you think, well, we've got to move down to London, and you're only there for 6 months, then you know, it's an absolute nightmare. Unless you're one of the Mourinho's or the Contes or you know people like that, Pep Guardiola, where you can go in demand, he's going to be 3 or 4 years. It's a tough gig to be the management.
You're still young though. You've still got plenty of time. It's all to play for, isn't it? All to play for.
No. Well, thank you very much. I don't feel young sometimes, but and the stress of it. You know, I look at managers, and before you know, I look at Ole Solskjaer at the moment. He's going grey.
Yeah.
It
does age them, doesn't it? That and politicians, it seems to.
It ages you, you know, because and it's so lonely if you're not getting the right results. You know, you've got 30, 40,000 pounds in the back of you. It can age you, and not having that family life. I've spent from when I was 18, 19. Not having a family life because I've always been away, whether it was with football or England or management. You know, it's so time consuming. Management's 24/7.
Yeah.
You go to bed thinking about how can you change it. You go to bed thinking what players to play. You go to bed thinking, am I going to be in a job next week, next month? And it's stressful on your family. So you kind of shut them away from that.
Yeah.
So to go back into that kind of
it's
environment again, you know, I don't think I want to do that.
You touched early on that first speech when you had to go in and you just put yourself into captain mode. So I'd like to pull back to that and say, listen, first black captain for England, an amazing achievement. Do you remember being told that you were going to be captain and what that felt like? Like we touched early, didn't we, about I don't know if I'm going to play first time, then you knew you were starting. But to go from that to being captain, that's just an amazing achievement.
Yeah, I did. It's funny, it was Graham Taylor, the one who actually picked me for the first time in '92. So when he said, you know, you're going to be captain, then I said, well, I don't know, I'm not sure I want to be captain. I think it's one of them, you know what I mean?
Might not.
Might see how I feel.
Yeah.
No, it was great. I mean, I didn't know. We went to America on a US tour with England, and it just pulled me aside and said, listen, Paul, you know, I want you to be captain for this tour. And I was like, wow. It was just like a wow moment, you know.
Yeah, amazing.
Because you never envisaged, you know, I never envisaged I'd play for England. You know, let alone for Man United and Liverpool. So to now to be coming from that Dagenham boy who used to stand on the corner of the streets, you know what I mean, drinking and fighting and that, you know what I mean, to now obviously captain your country, it came a long, long way. And it was funny.
I've got chills then.
No, it's funny because when I went to the press conference, and I've never seen so much press in my life. And the first question they said was, you know, it must be great to be the first black England captain. I was like, well, yes, but I'm just happy that I'm the England captain. I didn't want to put any colour, creed, religion on it whatsoever. And But so it was just great to be England captain, and I never probably realised how much important it was to be a black England captain.
Yeah.
You know, when you think the black players had gone prior to me, and it was a shame when we're talking about '92. We've had so many great black players before that who've never been captain. So for me to be the first one, you know, was amazing, really.
Yeah.
And it was only probably '97 when I captained England against Italy in Rome that I realised what it meant to be a black England captain and all the fan mail that I got. And it wasn't all football fan mail, you know, it was single parent families, you know what I mean, who've been struggling, you know, with kids and can't get them out of these unprivileged backgrounds, and how I've inspired them to try and get out of these areas, you know, a bit like my story growing up with Dagenham. And that's when it hit me home that I have an effect on people, you know what I mean, and it's not about winning, earning money. It's about, can you have an effect on people to make their lives better? And you know, receiving all that fan mail that I did, and I mean, there must have been thousands of them. Believe me, there was. And Claire had to open all of them, you know, all of them, and just read them to me. It was amazing. So you know, when people say, "What have I got out of being a footballer?" I like to think that I've inspired people to be better and get out of certain areas like I did.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. I think I don't want to dwell on, but I'd like to touch briefly. I mean, when you were footballing, racism was, I mean, it's still prevalent now, very sadly, but it really was completely unacceptable then, wasn't it?
It was, and it was even worse before then. If you go back to the 70s, you know, with Laurie Cunningham and people like that, and Remy Mose and that, it was even worse then. And growing up as a kid, you know, I remember my first game for West Ham. We played away at a certain team, and, you know, we were 4-0 down, and John Lowell says, "Paul, go and warm up." I was like, "Are you sure?"
Why me? You go out there.
I said, pick someone else. He's like, you know what I mean? And I remember like swarming up down the touchline, you know, and I remember like the coins and the bananas coming over. Now, for a 19-year-old kid, that can kill you.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? But it didn't, because I was used to that when I was in Dagenham, standing on the street corner when cars would go past and shout racial abuse. I'd already experienced all this as a kid at 13, 14. So running down the touchline at a certain club didn't affect me because I've experienced that. But we've come a long way since then. I think we have come a long way, and we've tried to stamp it out, and you know, everyone, press, players, PFA, LMA, everyone, you know, we try to stamp it out, but it's always going to be lingering around, and we've seen it more now, you know, via social media, and it's tough for these players, you know, that it's tough, but in our time it was even tougher, and even tougher with the people before. So, you know,
as you say, we've come a long way. We will get there, but we've still got a way to go. But you, Paul, you said you were inspirational. You have been inspirational, and I just working with you over the last couple of weeks. You've done nothing but be inspirational. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very, very much indeed, sir. And here's to your next chapter. It's all to play for.
Thank you very much, Susannah.
Thanks.
They say life is a game, gotta have your goals. I gotta take a shot, now pass me the ball. Always wanna stop me when I'm running the ball. Gonna dust it off, now watch me go.
Chase Buchanan, Private Wealth Management. Trusted advice made simple.